Hi, good evening. Welcome to the first of our two April meetings of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission. It is April 1st, 6:50 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted by remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of this agenda. And also going to throw in some other reminder for folks who are here to speak tonight that the HPC operates under its rules of policy and procedure. These rules include standards of conduct for HPC members, staff applicants, and the public. These standards require all individuals to present to conduct themselves in a professional manner, refrain from language that is threatening or demeaning, and from otherwise disrupting the meeting and work of commission. Copies of these rules can be obtained from the city clerk's office. And with that out of the way, let me do our customary introductions. We have Ms. Price,
Hi, my name is Denise Price, and I live in a local historic district.
Mr. Falvey,
Hi, I'm Ryan Falvey. I'm a resident of Ward 2.
Mr. Bauer,
I'm Dick Bauer, and I'm an attorney, and I was trained as a city planner, and I live in the Spring Hill neighborhood.
Mr. Shagnon,
I'm DJ Shagnon. I'm the landscape architect on the commission and a resident of Ward 5.
thanks. Americ Parks, resident of Ward 3 and architect, historic homeowner. And we have several members of staff here tonight. If you could introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Madison Anthony, and I'm a planner with the Department of Planning, Preservation, and Zoning.
Hi, I'm Kate Lester. I'm also a planner with the Department of Planning, Preservation, and Zoning.
Thank you all. If you bear with me while I get my agenda back. We have, I think, six things on the agenda. Stalling while I find it. The first of our cases has been withdrawn. So let's just read this into the record. It's HP 24-000055. Address is 170 Central Street. The applicant has withdrawn the proposal scheduled for the April 1st hearing and resubmitted an updated proposal where replacements will be done in kind, which would not require a review. Do we need to vote on this to withdraw it? I think we do.
Mr. Chair, this is Madison speaking. I don't believe we need to vote. I just believe that we need to have it publicly announced so
Okay.
that the public is aware.
Okay. Well, that case has been withdrawn. The applicant, by the way, was Doug White. The owner was Baj Joshi. So the next case that we have tonight is HP 25-000001. Address is 148 Morrison Avenue. The applicant is Thoughtcraft Architects, LLC. The owner is Leighton Collis and Catherine Collis. The applicant seeks a certificate of appropriateness to alter a LHD property by demolishing the rear portion of the building, constructing an attached addition, and constructing a detached backyard cottage. It's been continued from the March 18th meeting. Is the applicant here tonight for this?
Mr. Chair, this is Madison speaking.
Yes.
I promoted Mark Wilson, who is the applicant, and Mr. Wilson, if there is any other people in the public you'd like me to promote, please let me know.
I think we're good. Actually, I'm Chris Johns. Mark
Oh,
is, that's okay. Mark is in my office. But I'll be doing the speaking tonight. So I'm Chris Johns, partner with Thoughtcraft Architects.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
Give us a little rundown of what you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do notice that Leighton Collis appears to have their hand raised. So it's possible the owners also want to be included.
Mr. Johns, is Leighton Collins the owner?
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to double check.
All right.
Apologies, a little slow on the tech side of, but the owners are here and delighted to get in front of the committee.
Great. So should I share my screen then?
Yeah, let's
Yes.
just screen share and show us, I know you've been to us before and
Yeah,
Right,
it's
let's give
telling
us a
me,
full- update.
let's see if it'll let me do it. There we go. Yeah, so we were in front of the commission back in November in an advisory sort of meeting. So let's see here, share. You should be seeing a PDF slide. There we go. So yeah, we were in front of you in November and have since certainly taken into account the feedback and have submitted an application and are looking for your approval to move forward. And so I'll run you through the property and discuss what we're proposing. So 148 Morrison Ave is at the corner of Morrison Ave and Clifton Street. And it is purchased by Leighton and Catherine Collis, who are here with us tonight. And it's the end unit of the 5-unit row houses that face Morrison Ave. So it's this end unit and then the associated various additions that you see here in these photographs. So, this view is from Clifton Street, looking at kind of the rear. This is kind of standing at the corner. The bike path is just beyond, kind of at the end of this block. And so you can see, there's been some deferred maintenance on the row house itself. And then what we're proposing to do is remove the various additions on the rear portion of the property, keeping intact kind of the end cap of the row houses here, and adding a rear addition with a freestanding backyard cottage and then a small courtyard in between those two elements. We've been through zoning and planning, numerous meetings with Sarah and her staff. So this project complies with all zoning. The only things that are triggered here are relative to the fact that it's a non-conforming building type in this particular zone. So the idea here architecturally really is to try to enhance and make legible the historic mansard roof row house by introducing kind of an architectural seam, like a recess or reveal between the existing and the new components of the property. We're really looking to have the new architecture kind of be enhanced by and influenced by the existing mansard roof and elements of the existing structure, and trying to address some of the major guidelines that, for instance, if the property needed to change or be revised in the future, that the sort of new proposed work could be altered without any ramifications to the existing historic structure. And so that kind of is a reason why we began to kind of create this architectural seam, so that you begin to read the difference between the new and the old. So the existing mansard roof is currently clad with asphalt shingle that's quite dated and in need of repair. The cladding on the building is some kind of shake, probably cedar. And then the base of the building masonry walls are currently painted. And then again, the sort of all the stuff in the back is really a bit of an eyesore and kind of a jumbled up mess that's not functional, exceeds setbacks,
Right.
and you know, it's just really in need to disappear. So our proposed changes to the front are
No.
very minimal. We're planning to do some maintenance, replace the shingles on the roof and on the mansard facade portion. We're looking at repainting and dealing with some rotted trim around some of the existing windows. And then we're replacing the windows with a 2/2 product. We're also replacing the fence and replacing the fence, and I'll show you some more details about that in the future. I believe that was one element that was commented on in our advisory meeting that we've since come back to and revised to align with your feedback. Seems redundant. So, you know, we're kind of looking at, you know, adding these two forms to the property, really looking at striking some elevational alignments, as well as kind of completing the mansard roof by turning the corner at the seam here, which pre-existing conditions, it was just kind of chopped off and you didn't read the mansard roof terminating in a nice way. So that's something that we're adding back. And then, you know, looking at proportionally kind of dragging various datum lines across the facade based on the existing building and having that really influence the elements and the alignments of the new structures, the new components here. And even, you know, kind of studying the window configuration and the proportioning of the trim, and the various elements and scale of them around the existing windows, and kind of taking an interpretation of that into the new components of the addition and the backyard cottage. Here you can see kind of the proportioning system of how the windows march across the new comprehensive facade, and, you know, using the same size and type windows pretty extensively on the property. And, you know, we're proposing a 2/2 window with a, you know, fully divided light, so spacer bar, and then the muttons inside and outside. Looking at Andersen window product. These are just some visualizations of the doors and the windows that they do not have the muttons in them, obviously, but would in the proposed. The exterior materials that we're replacing, or that we'll be using to replace elements on the existing structure, and then as well as on the new components, are we're replacing the roof with either asphalt shingles or some form of synthetic slate shingles on the facade portion of the mansard roof, and on the element, the second story element of the addition, and then on the roof of the backyard cottage. So you kind of get this continuity of the second story elements carrying all the way back across this Clifton Street elevation, and then obviously turning onto the front face of the existing row house. We're looking at, as I mentioned, repairing and repainting the first story of the row house. And then we're introducing cedar shingles on the back portions of the first story. And then a kind of a stone veneer base that will be partially landscape wall and base of the backyard cottage building. And I'll show you, here's an elevation of that. So you can see from an aerial view looking down, here's the existing row house with the seam, the addition, the courtyard deck, and then the backyard cottage. And so we have a couple of site elements for egress coming out of the basement of the existing home here, entrance into the backyard and into the cottage, the courtyard area is a low landscape wall that then becomes the base of the backyard cottage. And so that's the granite veneered wall, and that turns the corner and kind of gives the backyard cottage something to sit on and kind of help ground the whole composition of the rear portion of the new work here. Couple of details regarding drainage and gutters and downspouts. So, kind of following a more traditional profile for the existing elements, and then a slightly more contemporary look on the new components. And so then this is just a comparison of kind of existing and proposed. Going around to the rear side, there's an alleyway. And then kind of a view you never really see, which is at the property line with the neighbor. And then these are some kind of bird's eye view views of the property that kind of show the ensemble of everything. So mentioned earlier the fence, so we've gone to a vertical cedar picket with a cap rail, following a little more of a traditional style. We have a couple of side entrances, one into the property to get to the courtyard and to service the landscape and so forth. You can't quite see it here, but the seam we actually widened, and we pushed the addition and the seam back further than what we showed you in November. And I think that was a discussion point that we had with you. So we've set that back even further. And then that fence carries around the property, and then there's a small gate to enter the backyard cottage here. So, there's good frontage on Clifton, and then of course on the alley side, there's a small space in the back where we can kind of conceal trash and recycling and access the alley from behind the backyard cottage and service. Down at the street view, just another perspective on how much more appropriate this is, and the benefit this brings to the public realm compared to what's there currently. And then a view from down on Clifton towards the back end of the property. And really, I think you clearly notice the relationship and the kind of dialogue between the elements with the roof lines and the kind of second story slate-like shingles. I guess I'll stop there and open it up for any questions or comments.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Collis, or one of you, I see you had your hand raised.
Yeah, just I think a quick point I wanted to make that's not in our renderings here is that we don't really get to show our landscaping, nor other than the separation of the main original historic structure in the rear cottage. But we do plan to not only kind of do some I hate to use the term farming is not the right term, but gardening along the side and trees, so that we sort of begin to become the gateway to the rail trail. So our rendering goes really far to show the architecture part, but we haven't really even touched the landscaping part, and that's particularly from my point of view, it's sort of part of it's a point of pride, and it's something that we want to, in doing away with this old 3-car garage with its asphalt roof and its weird basketball court on top of it. We're looking to wipe that all away and kind of make this transition to the rail trail. I think the rail trail is forested, and so we want to do our part to present that. And so it's not to shortchange in any way Chris's team's work, But I just wanted to make that comment as part of our application. I know it's not part of the hardscape, but it is it's important to us.
Okay, thank you. The next step in this hearing then would be to open this case up for public comment. If there are any members of the public who'd like to speak, please raise your hand and the staff will unmute you.
This is Madison Anthony from staff speaking. If anyone has a public comment, please raise your hands. And just a reminder that you will have 2 minutes to make your public comment. And your public comment should be regarding this specific case. All right, Kit, whenever you're ready, please share your screen with the timer.
One second, sorry.
You're good. And please, when you make your public comment, state your name and your address for the record. And I am going to allow Cassie Arnaud to speak.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm the owner of 142 Morrison, and I've exchanged a couple of emails on behalf of those in this house and then the other row house owners at 144, 146, and 140. The commission, it sounds like the commission was introduced to this back in November, but this was totally brand new to us when we got the original notice for the hearing that had been originally scheduled for March. I think we are all supportive of some improvements there, and all of us that have owned these historic row houses have, been aware of the importance of maintaining the historic character of all sides of these houses. And I think we were fairly surprised to see the extent of the rear addition that's being proposed, as well as the backyard cottage. I will speak on behalf of myself that I'm very supportive of adding density to the city. And so I'm not necessarily concerned with that on its face, but these are fairly significant changes to the rear experience, which we've always been told is considered public facing and subject to all of the same discretion that the commission has shown for all of the other units. We also have not had any interaction directly with the developer owners because they don't live there. Understandably, the house has been vacant for several years and has turned over at least once. So staff had suggested that we should, address some of our questions and comments to them, but again, we don't have any direct interactions with them. So we would welcome that. I think that probably the family that lives immediately adjacent has questions and comments. None of the renderings made it very clear what the experience is from the attached units, and it kind of makes it look like we don't exist. So it's a congested little space of wonderful single families, and we hope that we can find something that works for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. I'm going to promote Miriam Bromfield to speak next.
Hi, I am Miriam Bromfield. I live at 144 Morrison Ave. And I apologize, this is a newer process to me. But my question in looking at these renderings and the talk about, I know I had watched the last hearing that was recorded from November and the discussion about the fence, but I'm just curious because similar to what Cassie said, it kind of makes it look like our houses aren't really there, but the current fence is currently enclosing 144, 142, and 140. So just how it would go about being remedied that half of our fence would be being taken away and replaced, if that plans to be cut off somewhere, or just sort of what that would look like in terms of changing the front of our home, along with fixing up and making 140 more presentable as well. That's really it.
Thank you. Well, typically we just take all the public comments first, and if there are any questions and things like that, we'll come back and address them after, just to avoid
Thank you.
back and forth. Thank you.
Sure, of course.
Great. And I'm going to promote John Golson next.
Hi, everyone. John Golson, the owner of 146 Morrison. Just to echo Cassie's comments about what things will look like from the rear. The renderings don't show anything from the other properties or the full rear. And the pictures that are there are outdated as far as, trees and fences being there. So I don't want that to be misleading to anyone. And then also just a concern on the heat pump units that are on the roof, or proposed to be on the roof. I believe in some of the previous submissions or documentations, it says that the roof is the only viable option because it can't be in the frontage. But it seems like you could literally put them anywhere on the ground level within the plans. So just kind of like to get some clarification on that. Those heat pump units are on top of the new proposed second story, which is directly visible from our rear bedroom window. Right now it is a single story. So the landscape there is gonna be very different. And with the row house being historical for the roof, those are very visible and from the front and the side of the property. So just wanted to get some clarification on the proposal for that.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, this is Madison speaking. I believe that's everyone.
Okay. That's the case. We'll close the public comment portion of this hearing. And why don't we just start off by answering the questions that were asked before we forget what they were. I think the first one is the question about the fence and how it integrates with the neighboring property, because I don't know if you want to bring that rendering back up, but it does just show a fence on your own front yard. What's your intention there?
Yeah, are you seeing the rendering now?
Not
No.
yet.
There, how about now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess I'm not 100% sure what the question is regarding, because in our model and the rendering here, we didn't render out the fences and sort of the detail of the rest of the other properties because we're focused on ours. The fence that we're proposing is the only changes to the fencing we're proposing is at 148. We are not proposing any changes to fences at the adjacent row house or any others. Those just did not make it into the model of the rendering. So I hope that clarifies it for them.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt, but the adjacent two properties and 148 currently are all chain link fence, I believe. And then I believe 140 has a slightly different style of vertical picket fence currently.
Exactly.
Yep, that's right. Okay. So we're only proposing to change the fence at 148.
Okay, and that would be a white picket fence, basically, as I'm seeing in your rendering.
Correct.
Okay, and then there was a question about the heat, and that I think that's going to be something we're going to want to talk about too, the heat pumps on the top of the roof there. And I do vaguely remember a conversation about this before.
Yes.
about not wanting to give up yard area for those in the backside there.
It's
Well,
asked.
there's a zoning ordinance that will not allow any mechanical equipment within the setback, any of the frontages around the property or the setbacks around the property. So for instance, like we couldn't hang them off the back of the cottage because there's a setback there. We couldn't put them in the front yard, or we have two frontages because we're on a corner. We obviously couldn't put them in the front yard here or any of these yard spaces. So we're confined to limited opportunities. There's also limitations on how far the connectivity between the condensing unit fan outside to the internal units is. And so, putting them in a place that might be too far away, and I think we're at that threshold. We decided to locate them on the roof, get them up high, trying to do the best we can in terms of concealing them. I think a previous version of the form of the addition, I think obscured them a little bit more than this current design, but we kind of, in going back and forth with the city staff, felt like this was the most out of view and obscure position. And relative to, the neighbor's sightline, we could study that in more detail, but I suspect that if there's a window just beyond the backside of this addition, that you may be looking at the top of these at best, but I would suspect that you're not going to be staring at them because they're 8 or 10 feet higher than the floor line. So
Okay, I think let's continue. I think, were those the only questions? And then there's a concern about just seeing the rear in its entirety in rendering. We should, the next step for us would be to take it up as a commission. And we could talk about the heat pumps and other things more, but we should focus from the general to the specific, I think. Who would like to weigh in among the five of us?
Well, I think I'm happy to start. I think compared to what we saw in November, which were some earlier versions of the concepts, I do feel like this is it's come quite a ways in terms of having the architecture of the addition and the cottage feel consistent with, but not a replication of the front mansard in a way that I think does a pretty good job of accomplishing your goals. And then it feels, yeah, I mean, I think that the slightly greater separation of the slot, as it were, and the slightly better setback helps a lot with that. Yeah, I'm generally pleased with the direction it's gone. I have some more specific questions and further follow-up about some of the fencing issues, because that comes to mind, but I'm happy to let other people speak to the general stuff first.
Okay.
I mean, I guess before anyone else jumps in, I'll finish out my thought with saying that I think that it's worth comparing what's proposed here to the existing sort of mishmash that's currently out there of additions. And I think that this feels more in character with the row houses than the existing stuff that's sticking off the back of this building now. So to that extent, I'm happy with the direction of it. I mean, We can quibble about details.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll just say a few things. First off, I appreciate that everyone went back and took a look at some of the comments that we had made and, you know, really tried to hone in some of the details, like the flaring out of the mansard at the back that's cut off. So that was done very thoughtfully. I appreciate that because I think it's just completely changed the look right there. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Also stepping the building back away just a bit. I can see what you did there, and I think it really aligns nicely. And I do like how the mansard material follows all the way through. I think visually you've done a really great job. And you know, you're really highlighting the historic row house in the front, and I appreciate what you've done. I understand that there is concerns about the condensers on the top, and we could get to that, I think, in a little bit. But all in all, thank you for coming back with a great plan.
Thank you.
Denise.
Well, I'll add my 2 cents. I share the sentiments that have been expressed by Chairwoman Price and not Chairwoman, but Commissioner Price and Mr. Chagnon. I think this is actually really an attractive rendering of the property. In comparing this to what exists now, it's like night and day. And I appreciate the sensitivity that was put into thinking of the use of the materials and the setbacks of the sizing of all this. I mean, we've seen so many proposals come before us that I think are like overwhelming, and they don't look to have that much character. This looks special, looks very interesting and appealing. I think it was thoughtfully done. And I think it's unfortunate that some of the neighbors that have spoken up have not participated earlier in the process. And I think that would be an opportunity to engage some of the people in the neighborhood and just share more with them. All the concerns that were expressed, I thought, were all very reasonable, and it seemed as though there was more lack of information than anything else. And so I'm hoping that this creates an opportunity for people to share more information with one another, ideally getting on the same page. And as far as the mini splits in the roof are concerned, I could totally appreciate how a line of sight of that out of my bedroom window would be something that I would not enjoy taking a look at. I think the buildings themselves, the cottage and the extension, I think are really sharp looking and very attractive. But I think that placing the mini splits up on the top there, because they're so visible by many different, to hear that they're visible by a bedroom, but also from sight from the road here and such. If there's any way that those could be hidden, tucked into some other corner of the property, there must be a number of other places. Usually we see people trying to tuck them in, closer to foundations, and, I don't know, DJ, if you have thoughts on where that could be better situated, but they do seem to kind of scream out and be, for properties, for a project that has, I think, really great roof lines and features. I think it's an unfortunate kind of capping of that addition to have the mini splits up there. That's just, it's my opinion. Otherwise, I think it's really very thoughtfully done, very tastefully done, and a significant improvement and welcome addition to that, to the neighborhood there. Done.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. To quickly answer Mr. Falvey's question, I mean, looking at the site plan, there's very little. I mean, they basically end up on the back deck somewhere, and there are going to be regulations about how close they can be to windows and so on. And I think that they might be, I don't see, I mean, you could, Mr. Johnson, if you could flip back to the site plan, which is a couple of slides back, I think. You know, it's pretty full.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly did not take this lightly, and we we explored a lot of options. I think that you know, ultimately, I think we decided the unit for the cottage is, I think we can probably get it on this back wall,
Yep.
hung up high on a bracket, in the most discreet location you could put anything on the property. But it can't go on the setback public facing side. So that takes care of the cottage. We may ultimately only need one for the rear addition. We have not done a full analysis on the rest of the property. But again, we're trying to get rid of fossil fuel here as much as we possibly can. But we don't want to hang these on the only two facades that we have available to us.
Right.
Because that would be worse than it being on the roof. I think you know, when you see things on a roof, you sort of understand that that's often where utilities end up. The courtyard is quite small. It's only 16 feet wide. By the time you have a table and chairs, you don't want to be sitting next to that, which would not be, you know, it would be in the middle of the space basically because of the clearance requirements, as you pointed out. So it is pretty challenging and limited in terms of where it can go.
Out of curiosity, is it possible to have it on the roof of the slot portion as opposed to on the mansard-esque addition? Or does that get too close to the structure?
That is a possibility. I think we were moving forward with the worst case scenario, the best of the worst case scenarios that we could come up with, but that is a possibility.
Putting out there what in the worst case would happen as the furthest you would want to go, and then if you can find a better solution, you might take it. Okay,
that's right.
I know that strategy. Yeah.
I absolutely loathe them up there. It's like a wart. It's like you're celebrating them. So that's my opinion. It's like a bell tower dedicated to. I would
right.
Yeah, I'd put the money and put geothermal or something there just to get rid of them. But
that'd be nice.
That's my. Did Jack, have you looked into that? Would they be able to fit the truck in your site and put wells?
No, we have not.
Might be something to consider to solve a lot of problems for you that way. Obviously, it's cost for the wells.
Yeah, significantly more than what we're proposing. But yes, you're right. There's the potential to try to get them on this lower seam portion roof here.
Which would also let you have sort of a more full mansard-esque roof on top of the addition too, which would a little.
Yeah, you could complete that. Yeah, that's right.
But I'd rather see it smack dab in the front yard than on top of the roof. I'll write a letter to the zoning board for you.
Yeah, they won't let us do that, unfortunately.
Okay, so there's that. That's let's see, other little minutia questions. Well, actually, Dick, did you have anything? I customarily defer to all you.
No, I don't think so. I think I generally agree with the comments that people have made, and certainly about the placement of the HVAC stuff on the roof where it is really, really, really conspicuous. You can almost from here looks like it's a chimney. It's pretty hard to miss no matter where you go.
We could paint it red.
I was going to say somebody will figure out a version of these that has a faux chimney look to it, and they'll make it killing.
Well, don't they make, I'm not a mechanical, but can you get a more traditional, not that it would save us much verticalness, but a more traditional condenser looking thing? It's not an upright thin, it's lower and squatter. And they're-
Possibly, but not with this, not with the high efficiency units
Yeah.
these days.
When
Um,
I had heat pumps done recently, they didn't offer me anything like that. That was
No.
squatter. They
But
do
in-
come paintable, as Mr. Jones said.
Sure.
In general, I mean, to back up a little bit, the only thing that's given me grief along the way, which I think I'm okay with, is just the two-story addition on that. And I know we batted that around last time, and it's very dear to you. The sacred thing about this building is the row house. So obviously we don't want to do anything that interrupts the continuity of that. Wants to blend in as much as possible. And what you're doing as you turn the corner there, I think it would be worse to try to mimic that because it would never occur that way in a row house like that. You wouldn't have the mansard suddenly get into an L. I guess shouldn't say you'd never get that, but it's not so common. And I like the expression of the materials and things like that. There was another question on, you talked about slate. How would you do that since it's a contiguous building, how would you do that would you just have a transition point where you switch from slate to asphalt, the neighbors?
Oh, on the row house?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a natural break at this window right here where it
Okay.
goes full height. So that's the interesting thing about this section. Each roof section is isolated. It's captured by, window frame from eave of roof to the eave of the mansard. So the thought would be that we would go from here, we would do this section and this section, because once you get to this window and beyond, it's the next unit.
Okay.
And then
It'd be
it would-
nice if the whole building were that, but obviously you can't compel your neighbors to pony up
Sure. it would
more
be
than the
nice.
cost of your geothermal there for that. Another thing, actually looking at this rendering that caught my eye was you have what looks like an areaway, like a stairway going down to the basement there.
Yeah, that's right.
That railing, looks a bit like a sore thumb. What are you proposing there where your mouse is?
At the moment, we just have a kind of painted steel flat bar, simple, quiet, trying to make it go away element.
Okay.
Um,
It looked shining and bright from this
Yeah.
picture.
no, it would probably match the trim, which is kind of an off-white color. So let's see if I have if you're looking at it from the street view, you can barely see it over the fence. Just trying to make it go away. We'll have another handrail that goes up to the courtyard as well here. So we're just thinking of all those kind of humanly scaled elements, speaking in the language of the trim and the window frames and the fence.
I mean, it's not, I've sort of joked about this sometimes, but the precedence for black pipe rail, it's such an early retrofit that it's almost become part of the architectural vocabulary with these things of just doing your standard black with nice fittings, though not like the little slapdash ones.
It would be the only thing like that here, which I think would make it stand out more.
But you're talking about a black, oh, just like a wrought iron. Okay. But you're gonna need to have an infill there, I assume, for guardrail purposes.
Well, we're hoping to leverage the landscape so that you can't even really walk by the railing.
Yeah, as long as there's not a walking path within 4 feet of the uphill side.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
Okay. Another thing we didn't talk, you said you're gonna do the windows over?
That's right.
Because there is a precedent down, actually, as the person who spoke earlier, for window type that we've people who've been on the commission for a long time remember at the far end where there was a window replacement that resulted in an authentic, it was a single pane up front. And this might have been because they're replacing original windows at the same time. I don't know what you have,
None of these are original. These are all vinyl.
but they're all vinyl. Okay.
6/1.
Okay, so you're doing something of equal or better aesthetic
Better.
then.
See here.
Yes, okay. Well, that's, I think our general rule is that if you're, I mean, you could replace with vinyl, which you're not doing, which we're thankful for, but we can't tell you to, you're doing something that's better than that, taking it up a notch. Does anybody on the commission, I'm speaking free about, do you have any opinions on that?
On the windows,
Yeah.
I was trying to look at Street View and see whether the other buildings in the row
Yeah,
all
some
matched, and they,
others have gone to 2/2.
Yeah.
We talked about that with staff, and I think even at our November meeting with you all, and I think that was the consensus to move in that direction, so that's what we've done.
yeah, I think that makes sense. In fact, I don't think anyone has even the 6/1s left other than you. And then
I think
sounds right.
I might be
the
wrong.
the unit in the very end, the person who spoke, I think they had a replacement years back, and I think that they were replacing original windows that were 2/2, I think. And so whatever the
makes
unit
sense.
would be the style that would have been the earliest.
Yeah,
That sounds right. I think we found
Yeah.
that submission some years ago.
in any
Okay.
case, what's in this rendering looks like the rest of the windows, which makes sense to me. I did have one point to bring up about the fencing, which is you've got the picket fence along the street facade, which would presumably tie into the chain link fence that continues past your property for 2 houses, and then there's picket again on the end section.
Down
But
here.
none of the other yards have a fence perpendicular going back to the building.
That's not true.
No? Okay, it's possible that I just can't see it. Is there one partway down? Oh, yes, there is. I take that back. Okay. So then there goes that comment. I appreciate the clarification. You're right. I can't see it because it was in a bunch of landscaping until I got to just the right spot in the street view. There's not a fence currently dividing your yard from the yard next door, but there are others in the row, so reasonable. Yeah, do we have purview over fences? I'm trying to recall.
Yes.
Yes,
I
okay.
know,
Is
I know
there-
we've reviewed them.
They're effectively hardscape. They're not like plant material. I know we
Yeah.
have limited stay over.
Opinion for you, DJ, on the stone base. Can't quite tell from this rendering, and I don't remember that. I think the design idea was to, there,
Yeah,
to have the stone, is it some sort of uncoursed thing? I don't remember. It looks like you're bringing it across the
All the way
the
across.
bay window there, and it's forming an edge for the stair down. Is that, I get that you want to sort of tie it together in a way, but is there any reason that we would possibly not want to tie it together and have that stone be something that's a little bit more like one would see on a house of this age?
That's fine.
Sort of a question for DJ there too. So,
back to brick, you mean, for the mansard portion, staying with a brick?
yeah, or something that matches I assume it's a brick foundation on that, at least above ground, or is it stone?
Painted brick.
Yeah.
I get that your goal is to hide it behind shrubbery and stuff like that, so this would become a moot point eventually, but
And
it's just a thought, like it helps keep the yard of the house itself a little more traditional.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
yeah, I mean, is the stone proposed to wrap around the front at all?
No.
Okay, so you'd
No.
have theoretically someone, an owner or two after the Collises who clearly love the landscape, comes through and decides to clear cut all the vegetation down, then we're looking at a corner where brick
Yeah.
meets stone and it's obvious one of the two is fake.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to clarify the rendering, I think in reality, we wouldn't be cladding this existing brick. I think the stone is
Okay.
only the new
Oh, it
wall.
would be the front wall.
And, you know, and it dies into the base of the bay window. And then, you know, picks up again on the addition and then the landscape element here.
So how
Yeah.
would that, because the bay window, does that have a foundation or is that sort of dangling the way they sometimes do?
It does. So
that's
this would
an
be a
interesting
veneer, so it'd just be clad over the brick
Mm.
to
Yeah, it
give
might
visual
make-
continuity.
I'm sort of, I know it's just my view, but I'm sort of a fan of keeping that more of a brickish
I-
thing on that side there.
Fine.
Yeah, my reaction to that is just, I worry about the thickness of the stone veneer ending up, you know, I can't, if it's anything like my, you know, shingles that end over brick, there's not a whole lot of overhang there. And as soon as you put even a thin stone veneer on a mortar set bed, you've used that up and all of a sudden your foundation is almost flush with the shingles. I think if the wall on the original house portion stayed brick, you're not gonna run into that worry, and you could do the, you know, the wing wall for your basement access also in a brick veneer instead. And then once it wraps the corner and you get back towards the slot and the new addition.
Yeah, we just picked the
if you
stone up
wanted to
here.
go with- If you wanted to go with the stone there, I mean, the stone as a foundation material seems perfectly appropriate. It's just not what the rest of the mansards have.
That's
Sure.
fair.
That's sort of my gut on that, to Eric's question.
Okay, thank you. So outside of that, so just to summarize a little bit, and feel free to say more, anybody in the commission here. I'm hearing that you're gonna try to sharpen your pencil with that heat pump again. We're talking about a change in material there from the stone to the brick. If there been any other, all things considered, that's fairly minor. Is there anything else that we've talked about that we should summarize before we move on? Because we do have other things on our hearing tonight.
I did have a quick question, I guess. When you look at the side view, you got a side elevation.
Of this elevation here
Yeah, the actual
on Clifton,
Yep, thank you. Trying to remember the street name.
like this.
Clifton.
Yeah, so in the courtyard, there's something dark gray kind of popping up. And I'm just curious what that is. Not that it's necessarily in our purview, but
There's a screen.
no, the lower element. There's a
Dark
Table. It's a
table and chairs and
okay.
yeah, it looks like furniture.
Okay.
It's not, there's no element there.
Okay.
It's just stuff from
That
the
makes sense.
rendered views. Let's see if I can find. Yeah. There's a
Okay.
table.
That makes sense. Furniture.
Yeah, there's a sliding door that opens up right there to access the
Okay.
deck.
With respect to one of the neighbors had a concern about not seeing, I think, the rear of it in context. And I get that it sounds like this is the first time a lot of them are seeing that. I'm not sure how that would play into what we're doing tonight. It's a historic review, not a zoning. It's unfortunate. It'd be nice if they were a little more involved earlier. So that's the back side there, and I guess just to remember that what was there took up the garage straddled the whole width of that area there, right?
Yeah, and extended beyond, like closer to Clifton Street and the sidewalk as well.
So on the footprint wise, you're not actually adding anything to what was previously building. In
We're
fact, you're-
reducing.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean. And to the neighbor regarding a view from a bedroom, like we're happy to do a simulation view of, you know, being in this space next door, looking out this window
Sure.
to see how visible any of this is, whether they're here or we move them over onto the seam or not. Happy to run through a simulation on that to give them some peace of mind. So yeah, this was all built full wall all the way back to the absolute property line. And then it comes over the setback. So
Yeah.
we're pushing way back. We have a void space. We're stepping in off the rear property line or the side and then the rear.
Okay. And just to be clear on that, backyard, well, it was already built up, but I view that as a site, that cottage. I know we're calling it a backyard cottage, but because it's in the side and the site, it's not really having someone walking by wouldn't even know that's part of this site. So in my mind, I give a lot more free rein to the expression of that building because it's not really, I mean, for example, if that were just by itself and you weren't putting an addition, I would treat that as just a whole different element. It could be, it's not, we have buildings that kind of command their sites more, and what you add to it has more of an impact. This is not one of the situations. So does anybody else on the commission want to add anything or any questions? Because if not, we could probably go with some sort of motion, except that we need to figure out how we want to deal with the heat pump thing. If we want to continue that aspect of it or something.
Well, it sounds like if it doesn't live on the roof, it's going to become a zoning conversation as well. And I know
Right.
after this, we're off to zoning and back to staff anyway.
Or it's going to sit in the courtyard or something, or well, you're talking about sticking in the backside of the smaller building, weren't you?
Well, the unit for the cottage itself is going to be on the backside, hung off the wall here. But these service the main house, the addition, and the existing structure.
So there's both of them at work. We just don't see the one for the cottage because it's on the elevation that's not visible from a public way or.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you could put those in the courtyard, it's just that it takes up viable space.
Half the courtyard.
I mean, you would take up half the courtyard. It would be no courtyard.
What's
you
the
could-
distance? How far are they supposed to stay from a building?
An operable door or window in the neighborhood of 10 feet.
Well, no, that's not a fuel consuming. It's a. These things have different.
Yeah, but you can't walk out a door and then stumble on a
But where's your?
condensing unit.
Let's pull up your site plan again here. I'm being a devil's advocate.
So we have doors here. By the time you have a table for 6 or 8 people, you have enough room to walk around that table.
Mm-hmm.
There's a small plunge pool. You need circulation to get from the doors down the stairs and out of the property. And then you don't want to hang them on these facades.
And then you were talking about reviewing the possibility of putting it on the other roof for the junction piece.
Yes, the seam.
The seam.
So let me get to that view. So these can maybe go right here.
Yeah.
Pity whoever has to get up there to maintain them.
That's right.
But that's kind of true with them on the mad side.
You got to get to them regardless. Yeah.
And
Right. So
and Lori, just had a thought. So on that section of roof where the mansard comes to an abrupt end, that's just a side that's just gonna be EPDM or something up the side of that flat?
Yeah, we gotta deal with drainage and, you know, whatnot, so.
What if you got rid of the back one of those and had an extended flat and allowed the front two to come up higher to do more screening? That makes sense.
Not following you. Describe that again.
So just imagine you have a U shape, the top U, if you move up, if you remove that, and we're getting to goofy roof geometry, but we're already doing that. So, and then you moved the units, turned them 90 degrees and moved them up towards the eave there, and then allowed the side and front roofs to go up higher so that they eclipse more.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
then
that's-
our neighbor who commented is really
Well,
gonna
that's
see
true.
that.
Well, maybe there's a way to fix that. Maybe give it a nice trellis or something on that side, or I don't know, because we don't see that from the street, so that's not. I mean, I guess we would, but from that exposure,
I mean,
um,
looking at the roof pitches in the elevation below Chair Parks, it's still gonna peak out taller than the roof.
It is, yeah, the roof isn't gonna conceal them if we follow the same geometry of the existing,
Yeah.
which is what we're doing now.
it's more of a hip there.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mm.
I feel like the seam is likely to be a more successful spot.
Yeah,
for them.
I agree. I think because they can be further away from the streets, so then the public view of them would be minimized. It would be back closer to the facade, which is contiguous with the neighbor, so that the angle is so oblique that might diminish their perspective on them. And we can study that, you know.
Okay. So for knowing that might be a possibility, how do we want to handle this case? Do we have a condition on it, or do we, have we done this in the past? We allow, I mean, I might be the outlier in absolutely hating the look of that on the roof. I get why you want to put it there. We could allow either one, but we want to incentivize putting on the flat section. How sure are you that you could do that? You want to just change it to that here tonight?
I can't do it on the fly, no.
Okay.
I mean, that sounds to me like a conversation that's gonna need to happen with the MEP folks, that gonna tell them whether they actually have adequate clearance around that.
Yeah, I mean, we have not gone through engineering to know the exact
Okay.
number and exact size. We're basing this on some historic experience and knowledge of working with these, but these are the approximate size of the unit. I think they're, you know, within a matter of inches of precision. So we think this is fairly accurate in terms of their scale. In terms of putting them on the low roof, we've got a structural engineer we've got to make happy, and then we need to fully understand the connectivity and the size of them from an MEP engineer or a mechanical engineer. I think it's highly likely they can go here, and we're happy to be transparent about that process with whomever we need to be. I think it's solvable. I don't think it's gonna shouldn't hang up the approval of the design, I guess.
Okay. Well, the thing is, we need to give you direction tonight, and
Sure.
if we tell you they're okay where they are, then that you're going to say, being human beings, you've been given the authorization to not do anything else. So,
Well, add a note, you know, that
yeah,
this will be,
I would say we'll have staff review on that, maybe. Go back to staff on that.
that's fine.
Otherwise, I know we sort of keep zooming in on that, but I would be okay. I mean, we could entertain a motion for this project, I think. Unless anybody else has anything else they want to say.
I'm not sure that this is appropriate for staff review, which is really when we set some standard and give it to the staff to review to make sure it's in compliance, but this is more of a judgment call.
Okay. Then why don't we require it, we put it on the flat roof, and if you can't do it, you just come back to us in a future hearing and we review that again,
Okay.
just to get it moving forward. Thank you, Dick, for that.
Okay. Hearing that, if that sounds reasonable, I would move that we grant a or a certificate of appropriateness with the recommended conditions as outlined in the staff report, which I'll have to do with, filing it with ISD and so forth. Along with the condition that the condensers be placed on the flat roof, on the flat roof portion of the seam. And that if that turns out to be unfeasible, that they should come back for a reapplication for that portion of the project.
And then with the change from the stone to the brick at the
Oh, yes, thank
knee
you.
wall.
Do
As
that.
well as
Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Noted.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think I heard anything else.
I'd second the motion.
All right, we have a motion. Let me just get my screen back here. All in favor of the motion? Say aye.
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 Opposed? We'll do a roll call, starting with Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I will vote yes as well.
Right.
And in general, it'd be good to have some, I mean, we've just voted, but some interaction with your neighbors would be good, just to meet them. And thank you.
Thank you very much, the commission. Appreciate it.
Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Okay, back to the agenda. We have, everything else we have is a demolition case. So we have, 1, 2, 3. Okay, we have 4 cases for significance. I'll give people the rundown on, the process here, that for demolition delay, demolition review ordinance is a 2-step process. The first is the public hearing that we're having tonight, where we did review a structure and evaluate whether it's has significance. This doesn't take into consideration what might replace it. It doesn't take into consideration its state of disrepair or repair, things like that. It just reviews the building on its own merits, either because of somebody who lived there, or its history, or its style, the level to which it represents a style, or its role in the streetscape, things like that. If we vote no, then demolition can occur. If we vote yes, then it gets kicked to a subsequent public hearing where we determine whether it's preferably preserved, which takes into consideration other aspects such as the condition, kind of more circumstantial stuff like that. If we vote no, then it can be demolished. If we vote yes, then it begins a period that could last as long as 18 months, during which we meet with the owners, try to find ways to either keep the building or keep parts of it, or have some kind of direction as to what replaces it. This sometimes can be just memorializing it, documenting it. Sometimes it's incorporating things in the future design. Sometimes it's keeping it, finding ways to add on to the back of it. If after 18 months nothing happens, then they are free to demolish it. So we have first case tonight, which actually has the applicant has conceded to historic significance, will be returned for a preferably preserved determination on the next hearing, April 15th. That's HP 24-000125, address is 8 Bolton Street. So that case will not be heard tonight. We'll come to the next hearing for preferably preserved determination. So the next case we have is HP 24-000122, address is 128 Central Street. The applicant is Pro Touch Home Improvements, Inc. Nilton Dornelis. The owner is Nilton Dornelis. The applicant seeks to demolish a building constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. Is the applicant here tonight?
This is Madison speaking. I just promoted the applicant's attorney, and it looks like the applicant is here just in the audience tonight.
Okay. Mr. Dash, Attorney Dash, welcome.
Mr. Chair, good to see you all. Attorney Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street in Somerville. I'm representing Nilton Dornelis in this matter of the applicant and the owner. This property is a single-family house in the neighborhood resident zoning district on a fairly large lot. While there are no plans yet, the applicant would like to demolish the house, split the lot into 2 lots, and build a 3-unit structure on each lot, for a total of 6 units, where there's currently just the 1 unit. This would increase density in the city, which meets the purposes of both the zoning ordinance and the Summer Vision 2040 plan. Regarding significance, which is the subject tonight, as the chair so eloquently stated, looking at the criteria in the demolition review ordinance, section E, I would note the criteria for determination of significance. First, there is no association with an important person or event. 2, there is no association with the broad architectural, cultural, political, economic, or social history of the city or state. And 3, it is not historically or architecturally significant in terms of period, style, method of building construction, or association with a reputed architect or builder. As stated in the staff report, this structure is not unique in any way. It's similar in style to other homes, and I would say in the neighborhood and citywide. While the staff report talks about structures across the street being similar, and actually, can I share my screen? You can see this to a certain extent in the photograph on the front page of the staff report. You can see there's actually a triple decker to the right of the property. I just want to, no, it doesn't matter, I guess. If you look to the right on the first page of the picture of the house, you can see that there's a triple decker on the right side. And what appears to be a long duplex building on the left 2 doors down. And then the next building is a large fabrication district, large brick factory at the corner of Central and Vernon Street, being the Rogers Foam building. I'm sure you're familiar with if you've ever driven down Central Street. Diagonally across the street from this at 131 Central is a multiplex in the urban residence zone. So if you look at the block, it's a real hodgepodge mix of building types here. Alterations have been made to this building as stated in the staff report, and one can see a change in the footprint. If you look at the 1895 and the 1900 Sanborn maps in the staff report, the footprints of the building is different. The building type is very common. It's not special or significant. Having only 1 unit on a lot of that size is not the highest and best use of the site for the city's purposes, and creating more density would be a good thing. Understanding it's not up for tonight, but I just wanted to give you the flavor of why we're here. As such, the applicant requests the commission not to find the structure at 128 Central Street significant for demolition review purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on your side there, the owner, want to say, or should we move to public comment?
I don't know if Mr. Dornelis has been promoted or not. I know he was away and he wasn't sure if he could make the meeting, so I'm glad he was able to make it because it got rescheduled, as you know, from last time. So,
Okay.
but I don't think there's much more to say. It's a fairly straightforward one. It's just pretty much a run-of-the-mill little house, I think.
All right, thank you. The next step in this hearing is to take public comment. If there are any members of the public who'd like to speak, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
Mr. Chair, this is Madison speaking. I don't see anyone raising their hand.
Okay. Then I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and toss this out to the commission. Who has thoughts on this?
I'll say a few things. I appreciate what Attorney Dash said about the street has a number of different types of property on it that if you look to the right of the picture on the front of the staff report, you know, there's a 3-family there. Across the street, there's obviously the 2 great places at 27 and at 25 Central. And, you know, the street is a little bit of a mishmash, but I think that is what adds to the charm of our communities. And I think the fact that those 3 little places that are sitting there that, you know, have stylistically some similarities, and over time things have been changed. The particular property that we're discussing right now is at 128 is just mostly original and darling, and I think it should be maintained, especially since the other 2 across the street are similar. So it has a lot of the original window openings. You look at the entire front porch that runs the entire length of the first floor. I think it's darling. And it would be, I think, sad to tear it down and but I understand that we need more units in the city. However, if we strip our city of the historic feel, we have nothing left. So I think that it should be maintained. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'd echo some of what Ms. Price was saying, that I think particularly the fact that the street is such a hodgepodge. The 3 properties in question, if you look at the old Bromley maps, are some of the oldest ones on the street, and you know, not the oldest, obviously. I think the big house on the corner, with Vernon was older and so forth. But there's a real continuity, and other things have been added later, but these are some of the earliest pieces and the ones still remaining in that original sense of the streetscape, which I think, you know, certainly lends significance. Preferably preserved being a whole nother discussion, but in my eye, connects it with the other properties, at least in a group. And also, as Ms. Price mentioned, it has a fair amount of architectural integrity on its own merits, stylistically as a representative of that style, which, yeah, is fairly common around Somerville, but that's one of the points of continuity that lends significance.
Thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts?
I would echo what my colleagues have said about it, and we just noted, this is a general comment, not directed at Attorney Dash, but when they're all the same, we get told, well, we can lose one of them because we have a bunch of them, and when they're all different, we're told there's no pattern here, we can lose one of them.
I would say, Mr. Bauer, also that I've had this commission say that when the entire street is the same, that taking one out ruins the continuity. But if it's a hodgepodge, apparently they're fine. So I put that right back on you.
Fair enough.
Fair, and yeah.
It's interesting because I mean, Attorney Dash makes a valid point with what significance there are cases when losing one is sort of like you just lost one of your teeth and your smile is bad. I can see why this is the building type is not particularly unique or uncommon, and it's sort of I mean, even though there are front gable facing houses across the street, they're not really quite the same. I guess they're sort of the same time period, but they're a different feel to them. And yet this building does just, you look at it, say, oh, that's kind of a nice, it really holds a spot there. It's set back. It's got kind of a different feel to it. It has its original porch detailing on it. So, I guess I'm sort of on the fence there. Yeah. How about you, Ryan? What do you think?
I think I'm on the fence as well, Chair Parks. I mean, I see the pictures of the house and I do agree with Commissioner Price and Shagnon just say that, you know, I can see where there's some significance to that because of how it fits in its own unique little way, and it is a charming looking home. I think I'd have a very hard time. I know we're not voting on preferably preserved at this stage, but I could support significance, and I think that would probably be as strong as I'd go on this property.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've all, unless anybody else has anybody has anything else to add, we could go with a motion.
I will move that we find the property at 128 Central Street historically significant.
Yeah, a motion by Mr. Shagnon. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Ms. Price. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I'll vote no, just to be the lone whatever. We'll do a roll call. Starting with Ms. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I'll vote no. And then we need to adopt findings. So would one of you care to suggest some findings?
Take a stab at that if nobody else wants to. I would say that it retains the integrity of its location, form, massing, and a lot of its detailing, original architectural elements, and that it is a good example of its architectural style, and has early provenance on the street, which causes it to fit in with several of the other buildings in its group.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shagnon. Any other changes to that, or if not, we could take a motion for those findings.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Bauer, seconded by Mr. Shagnon. All in favor, adopting the findings?
Aye.
Opposed? Actually, can I vote yes on findings? Because I don't disagree with those aspects. I just didn't think they rose to the. Yes, I'll vote yes as well.
I think you can.
Yeah, I think you can.
We'll do a roll call. Ms. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. All right, so you know the drill. Attorney Dash, we'll see you whenever it is, next month.
So it would be the May meeting? May
Um,
6th?
Can staff fill us in on how scheduling's looking on that?
This is Madison Anthony speaking. Let me double check on what the next meeting we could advertise you for is.
Probably would be not, obviously it's not April 15th, it'd probably be May 6th, I think, if you're sticking with your usual schedule.
That sounds about right. Just let me double check.
Of course, just let me know. Well, thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Madison.
Thank you. We'll see you.
next time.
Let me reclaim my agenda. My agenda was hidden. Haha. All right, the next case on our list is HP 24-000120. Address is 199 Elm Street. The applicant is Picker Construction. I think it's Pick. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Pablo Picker is the applicant. Owner is Wisdom Publications. The applicant seeks to demolish a building constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. Is the applicant here tonight?
Hello, Commission. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, okay, Paul's on. I'm gonna let Paul Miller present and talk.
Thanks, Pablo. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Paul Miller. I'm a principal at Neighbor Architects. We're the architect on this project, and here tonight to present the existing building, requesting permission to demolish it. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
I can see your screen, but nothing.
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully there's not too much lag. Just let me know if it seems like it's slow as I'm flipping through slides, and I can slow down. So this is the existing building at 199 Elm Street. It's a two-story wood-framed commercial structure with a mansard roof, built around 1920. The building has been altered to include a rear addition and utility structure. The parcel is located 2 blocks from Davis Square, adjacent to transit and fronting a pedestrian street on a site that has been identified for enhancement in Summer Vision 2040 and also zoned as MR4, along with the surrounding parcels. So we're planning to replace this building with a mixed-use building with ground floor commercial space that ties it into the commercial buildings which surround it on all sides, with apartments above. So this is flanked by Elm Street to the southwest, and as I said, commercial buildings on all other sides of it. I'm just going to flip through the existing photos. You're looking at the Elm Street facade here. This is the south facade, the kind of southeast corner, where you can see one of the additions that was put onto the building. Kind of the east-facing facade and the north facade. That's all that we plan to present tonight. Happy to take any questions from the commission.
Thank you. Any members of the public who'd like to speak about this project, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
Mr. Chair, this is Madison Anthony speaking. I see 2 members of the public. Kit, if you could start the timer, I will promote them to speak. All right. I am going to allow Paul Barron to make a public comment. Mr. Barron, you have 2 minutes. Whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Paul Barron. I live in Ward 6 in Davis Square. I'm very interested in making the square a healthy place to be and to increase the density of it in ways that are going to work with the existing structure. And so I would really love to have this commercial structure gone. It's kind of sandwiched between 2 business places, and I think it would be a wonderful way to increase density without having a huge building in the square. So I'm very much for demolishing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. I'm going to promote Joshua Mitchell to speak. All right, whenever you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Joshua Michel of Ward 2, and I also support the demolition of this rather standard mansard, which is rather common within the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to promote, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, but Navia Migeli to speak. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Navia, Ward 7. I've passed this structure quite often, and I have never noticed it before. The beauty of the Revival building right next to it far outweighs anything that promoted me to even look at this building before. And as someone in the neighborhood, I agree with Paul also that it's a great way to increase density or increase housing without increasing the density of the area. So I really appreciate this project and agree with demolishing this building. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great, Mr. Chair, it looks like that's everyone who raised their hand.
Okay. In that case, we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing and toss this out to commission. What do you all think?
Well, I'll start. It won't be a surprise to anybody that I love little mini mansards, and I appreciate that maybe it just kind of, you know, falls into the background and people don't notice it. I've noticed it a couple times driving by, and I just always thought that it could be very charming and very darling. And you know, it first appears on the maps in 1884, which is, you know, that's an old structure. And I understand that they're trying to increase the density and, you know, get more housing and a commercial space in there. But I'm not on the zoning board. So my opinion is strictly that we keep the historic structure and they figure out how to work around it and make it as cute as it should be. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
I think I take a slightly different tack in that I look at it and I say it was a really cute little mansard, and it's been butchered in so much of its detailing and finishes that that I don't know that there's a whole lot of it left other than its massing and general form. And it doesn't, I mean, I'm always finding myself looking at the context of where it is, and it's not sitting in a group of mansards. It's not an echo of an older pattern. I think if we look at the development of things, you know, looking back at the older maps, there were a few similar structures next to it originally where Revival and so forth now are, but they've been gone a while. And maybe it's the last one of its original batch around there, but the character of that area has changed. I don't know. I'm not sold on significance on this one. That's my quick reaction, I guess.
I think I come down more where Miss Price is. And to me, it's sort of more than just the massing and shape of it. It actually, from the front, which is what people see, still has a lot of detail. The butchering has really been more in the back where people don't see it.
Wow.
But walking down the street or standing in front of it, what you see tells you a lot of what it was like when it was built in the 1880s.
Other than the brick cladding and the vinyl siding on the upper story.
Neither of those
Yeah.
were, I agree.
Yeah, but
Everything's fixable.
yeah.
Who else have we not? How about you, Mr. Falvey?
I think I'll probably side with Mr. Chagnon on it. This was I feel that it's the building has been altered enough where I can see some of the traces of what it was like, you know, its original days, but it seems as though with the additions in the back and the changed materials in the front, that it's probably had its better days there. And so for that reason, I wouldn't be inclined to declare it historic due to its structure. And if there's no people there or other significant historical attachments to it, I wouldn't view it as necessarily a significant property.
Thank you, Mr. Falvey.
I do want to chime back in briefly with, I went and looked at Google Street View to try to figure out what had happened with the other structures, and it turns out that both Revival and Dykeson next to it still have the mansard cottage back behind their commercial front. Not that there's anything really left of it, but well, there is on the second building down, the one closer to Posto. Just kind of an interesting side note that, oh, well, they're actually still mansards back there. You wouldn't know it from the street side.
The Google view from 2024 in August, actually, you can see on Revival has the mansard on the side, and also the little yellow building, which is a bit more obvious.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Yeah.
I think I would probably weigh in on the no side here. I know that I totally get it, Denise. I love these little buildings. I just think that this was never a really good representation of that building type so much, especially since they plastered the brick on it. I get the value it has there, but its context is almost anomalous, except for those ones that you just pointed out. It's kind of like it was built I think it was built with the side walls being flat like that because the windows are original there. So somebody sort of built it as a mansard minus the side mansards. But I think that's where I would lean on that. I don't know. Any other thoughts to add to that, or we go with a vote?
We're ready for a vote, and I feel like this is one of those where the motion needs to be phrased in the positive no matter what, right? Is that what we determined? That
Yeah,
the
we've
motion
been
is
doing
to-
that. A
Yeah.
yes vote is for significance. A no is for not.
Move that the commission vote on whether to find the property at 199 Elm Street significant.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Mr. Shagnon, seconded by Ms. Price. All in favor
Aye.
and opposed? Let's say
Nay.
no.
Nay.
And or whatever, choose your word of preference. We'll do a roll call. Ms. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
No.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
No.
and I'll vote no. And we must do findings for that, which would just be that Let's see. Um,
It's not significant.
it's not such. I mean, I would just sort of parrot what we said. It's front facade has been, it's not to me, it's not a good representation of that building type, especially given the modifications that have occurred. It doesn't, as a whole, reflect the streetscape any longer. It's not part of its immediate surroundings so well. It's small commercial storefronts and things. Those would be the findings or rationale for the vote.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to add to that, feel free.
Sounds good.
Sums up what I would have said. So
Okay.
Do we accept those as the findings?
So is that a motion?
That is.
All right, a motion for Mr. Shagnon,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Falvey. All in favor of adopting Mr. Shagnon's motion? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
And we'll do a roll call again. Ms. Price? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, no.
Mr. Falvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bauer?
No.
Mr. Shagnon?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So there you have it, applicants. Thank you for coming to our commission tonight. Good luck with the project.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, and have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Well, we're not used to having so many split decisions on these.
Yeah.
That's probably good that we have different thoughts. The last item on for new cases on our agenda is HP 24-000095. Address is 142 Cross Street. The applicant is JAC Investments LLC. The owner is also JAC Investments LLC. The applicant seeks to demolish a building constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. Is the applicant here tonight?
This is Madison Anthony speaking. If you are the applicant for this case or here to represent it, please raise your hand. Again, if you are here to represent this case, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing anyone claiming to be the applicant.
Okay. Fresh on memory, when someone doesn't show up, are we allowed to continue it or do we have to hear it?
We are allowed to continue it. I think that's usually preferred.
Yeah, I'm being
So
fair
that,
to them. Because normally they have to sign off, they have to request that, but
No,
let's
or
let me see.
sorry, Dick, were you saying something there?
things that are in historic districts, I'm pretty sure that we cannot continue them without permission, and I don't remember about demolition review. Ms. Anthony, are you sure that we can continue?
I mean,
I believe that we can. I don't think we necessarily have to. Let me.
We often end up simply denying because people are not there, and if they come back later, they can ask us to reopen it. But that way we make sure that we don't inadvertently allow it by not acting on it.
Yeah. I am going to text a senior planner right now and see what I should do. 1 second.
and I believe that we are allowed to, in theory, open it to public comment and so forth before continuing it anyway, right? Like,
Yes,
I'll
I think
be
so.
I'll be blunt. Looking through the staff report, I don't necessarily know that I feel much need to continue this. I don't know what will get said, but I would want to hear from the public if anyone came to speak on it. And I'd want to hear from the rest of the commission, but
Yeah, I would
said-
concur.
I have initial thoughts, but I'll wait till they're proper place in the process. But it may not be worth a continuance is where I'm going.
Well,
I'd
do
like
we
to-
want to? I'm
I'd like
sorry.
to remind Chair Parks that I will have to recuse myself because I'm in a butter.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. I just texted Sarah White to see if she has a preference on what we do, because she's more familiar with the protocol than I am. I'm looking at their file right now and I can see they were definitely notified about this meeting.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sure we've had this situation, but I just can't remember in the past what we've ended up doing.
We
But-
had it before, and I think it was like the first time I ever had a case go before the HPC. And I think we went ahead and heard the case, but I
Okay,
don't
mean,
know if that's protocol.
Dick, you were chair for a good long while. What did you tend to do with that situation? Except this is a demo, as you said, not a.
So I think we could hear it even though they're not here. My concern is whether we could continue it without them being here, or whether that would, if we don't deny it, whether that automatically grants it without our intending to do so.
We'll look
That
at the
is
other direction.
true, because they're not here to consent to being continued.
On the flip side, is there any reason we couldn't hear it? I think we're allowed to do that.
I think we're allowed to hear it.
It's on the agenda. It's not a requirement that they present it.
That's
I mean, I have definite
think
feelings
you're
about this.
Okay. I think you're correct. We're allowed to hear this. So I say we go ahead since it's already advertised and there
Yeah.
are people in the audience.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that then. So, let's see, we already read the case into the record already. So we'll go to public comment. Any members of the public who'd like to speak, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
All right, it does not look like anyone is raising their hand to speak.
Okay, I'll close the public comment portion of the hearing. And any thoughts on this?
Halfway demolished on its own. No, not actually, but I mean, there's very little indication to me that it was anything noteworthy when it was built, other than having been a storefront with some amount of boarders and homeowners. Oh no, just a storefront. This is a list of people who worked at it. You know, and not a particularly noteworthy storefront, and the staff wasn't able to find any record of it, and it's been pretty heavily altered and degraded over time. I don't have any attachment to it, and I bike past it almost every day.
Yeah, I walked by that when my kids are going, well, you're still going to the East Summit, yeah.
Yeah.
That building always kind of puzzled me because I never saw any life or activity. In theory, it was a restaurant in my life. But I would concur with what you said, Mr. Shagnon. I had a picture, except this, there is around section on, I don't know if any of you are on that Somerville Facebook page for old photos of Somerville, I forgot what it's called. And if someone used to post pictures from the McGrath Highway when they were constructing it or enlarging it, one of those two steps. And there's a picture down that picture street, but it would probably take me all evening to find it. And it's been so long since I saw it, I don't remember what this would have looked like. It certainly wouldn't have looked like it does now, if it was even there.
I think it actually looked surprisingly like it does now. I saw those pictures and thought, wow, I had thought the building had changed a lot, and it hasn't changed as much as I had thought.
Oh, interesting.
If you and I are thinking of the same pictures.
Yeah, it was, well, if you've seen, there were some pictures looking up and down what was formerly Medford Street, I guess still is technically. There and then further down a little bit towards sort of the Cambridge. Yeah, anyway, I don't have it in front of me, so. In any case, I don't really view this as having historic significance to the point where I would vote yes on this at least.
I concur with everything that's been expressed. I don't see any reason to prolong the life of this sad building.
Oh, that's right. We don't have Ms. Price with us. Okay.
That
I forgot that she's recusing herself. Mr. Bauer, have you had any thoughts on this?
It does not strike me as worth saving.
Okay. Then I think I'm hearing I think I've heard from all four of us. In which case I would entertain a motion on this.
And I believe we still have to phrase these in the positive, right? So
Yeah, vote a yes. It's basically a motion to declare
motion
it
to find it
significant.
significant.
Yes,
I move that the commission vote on whether to find the property significant.
second that.
okay. Motion by Mr. Shagnon, seconded by Mr. Falvey. All in favor? All opposed?
Nay.
No. And let me just get the roll call. Mr. Falvey,
No.
Mr. Bauer,
No.
Mr. Shagnon,
No.
and I'll vote no. And the findings would be what we just said. It doesn't. Well, as you were saying, Dick, that might not be that it doesn't retain its integrity, it's just that there's nothing significant to it. It lacks significance.
Yeah.
By original design or as altered. And it doesn't really relate to anything in its streetscape, doesn't carry on any kind of a pattern or tradition. There's no noteworthy person who seems to live there. So I would probably use those.
Nobody lived there.
I look forward to the day when someone's declaring my house never had anyone noteworthy living there long after I'm dead.
That would be a national treasure, Eric. You know that.
Right. Rip it down. Okay. Well,
right.
that aside, then we need a motion to adopt those findings.
So moved.
I'll
Okay,
second.
Motion from Mr. Bauer, seconded by Mr. Shagnon. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll do our roll call. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. So I would thank the applicant, but they're not here, so that is that. Welcome back, Ms. Price. As in a butter, you'll have changes in your neighborhood, it sounds like.
Yes, I will reserve comment.
Have you, without commenting on your opinions, have you ever eaten there or had you before when it was still open?
No, I mean, I've never seen anybody in there, walk in or out. I own a condo across the way I haven't lived there for a number of years, but when I was
Huh.
living there, never. But off my lovely balcony in that old historic church that has the round front.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm not one of the lucky ones that owns in the historic church. But I am on the board of trustees for the building. And but anyway, out my deck patio, I can like lights were never on. It was just an odd little place. So I look forward to seeing what happens there.
Yeah.
That'd be a great name for a restaurant, an odd little place.
A little place.
It would. All right.
All right.
The only thing on our agenda is minutes, I believe. Let's pull that back here. Yeah, minutes from March 4th. And you attached those to the email, right? Yes, here they are.
Yeah, they were.
Sure
I
hope so.
haven't- Yep, they're there. I haven't actually read them yet. I apologize, but let me just do a quick browse.
I read through them. I didn't see any issues. I don't know who's putting them together, but
Yeah, they look fine to me.
yeah, nicely done. So I don't know if you guys are using AI at all, but they were nicely captured.
Is that, I laugh, but is that actually a thing now? Have AI
Yes.
listen to notes and
I'm on a couple other boards, and they recently have been using AI to capture the notes, and it's shockingly accurate.
so it's not just a transcription, it actually sort of paraphrases people's thoughts and
Yes. Yes.
recognizes voices. Oh, that's really spooky.
Yeah.
That's one of the things AI
Particularly
is actually
for,
good at.
for stuff on Zoom, since it's already exists, not only exists on an electronic platform to begin with. It's really quite remarkable.
I feel obligated to say something wistful, but in reality, I really, really hate making minutes. So,
Right. But it's deceptive, because a lot of what makes it seem so good is how fluent it is, and that can mislead you when it's fluent but wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing actually a fair amount of that in legal stuff.
Yeah.
Several briefs recently in which there are arguments that are based on case authorities, except the case authorities don't exist. The AI had just made it up.
Yeah. Legal
You
briefs
ever
are
go and
something
look
that-
at like the transcripts for this meeting on Zoom? They're always wrong.
Oh,
They're like, there's always like every few words is like not captured correctly. It's very strange. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
no.
Oh.
But the person doing these has been doing a great job for a while now, and I appreciate it. And I just scanned it and didn't see anything that jumped out at me.
These are,
I agree with that. I
I believe these are not AI. We still have wonderful human involved in our meeting minutes.
All right.
Would
That
someone like
it?
to make a motion?
Make a motion to conclude the meeting for April 1st, 2025.
Sure.
You're gonna
Did,
move to
sorry,
approve the
did we
minutes
actually approve the minutes?
No, we
Oh.
haven't. We need a motion to approve the minutes.
I jumped the gun on that one, huh?
did.
I'm afraid, Ryan.
You were also skipping the CPC update. I moved to
right.
approve the minutes of March 4th, 2025.
Second that.
Okay. So motion by Mr. Shagnon, just saying this for AI's benefit. Seconded by Mr. Falvey. All in favor of adopting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And do the roll call. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
I abstain, I was not there.
one abstention there, Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I'll vote, Ms. Price, sorry.
Yes.
You got shuffled around, and I'll vote yes. Yeah, CPC update. So last week we had our annual, the public hearing in which we take input from mostly city folk, members of the public, but city, and then a couple of nonprofit people I mean, it's always good to hear this stuff because we don't, you like to know what the priorities are and what's kind of in the pipeline and, you know, the city presents this stuff for the open space because realistically, the city is the only organization that's going to look for open space funding, practically speaking. I'm sure it doesn't have to be that way, but they're the ones, PSUF and those folks who put together stuff for parks and all that. And the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is who distributes the affordable housing numbers. You hear what they're up to. So sort of a fact-finding thing. You know, what the big topic is that thanks to the vote, we now have twice as much money in the CPC to spend. So that gives us more opportunities that way. And of course, everybody already has things that they'd like to see it spent on. You know, one of them is the city's capital needs. We've got a lot of projects that may or may not involve historic aspects to it, the buildings that have been decommissioned and a list of them. There's always a need for affordable housing and open space, all that kind of stuff. So that's where it was. We're kind of doing that, doing some canvassing to see how people really rate the breakdown that we assign among the three categories to see if we're doing it right. Historically, what we've been doing kind of reflects the desires of the people who at least answer polls in the city. I don't know, any questions, Dick, since you were in this role at one point, any questions about how it's headed?
The main question is whether the increase that got voted in is effective now or whether we have to wait a year or two. When we first adopted it, there was a couple years before it kicked in. And then, of course, kicking in is just when the money starts to come in. So it was like a couple years down the road before there was actually, you know, we were actually getting that amount of money. And I was just wondering whether it's any different this time or whether it could still be another 2 years before we start to see the increase.
My understanding from talking to Roberta Cameron about it is that the next funding round, it will be increased, but there might have been one little caveat, like one aspect of it.
Step away a moment.
Oh,
I have to
okay.
step away for a sec. I'll be
Sure, yeah. We can adjourn without you if we have to. Yeah, the money will be here for the next funding round at the higher rate.
Okay, well, that's great.
But I don't remember if I'm getting it right, that it's based on the money we're spending this year was raised the previous year, so we have to wait till a year has gone by at the new tax rate, which will the next fiscal year for the town. So that's sort of an answer for you, Dick, but yeah, there's no other big news there. We have more turnover because that commission, you get term limited out after 2 terms. So we're constantly getting new people coming and going. Speaking of coming and going, I always put anyone knows anybody who might want to serve on this commission, feel free to rope them in. Since I think you're just about looking at our entire membership right now, except for Robin, who will be coming back, I think.
We're all reached our expiration date too, according to that recent memo that went out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting.
That's a lovely choice of words, DJ. I agree with you, by the way.
I don't know what's come of that. I mean, I guess we just have to apply for positions after a certain time, but given that we're at half our commission size, it seems like it's kind of silly.
I think it'd be more fun if they just fire everyone and then they actually have to ask you back. We need a little Doge-ish type of,
yeah, we'll get Musk involved. Sure. They just assign our duties to some other commission that has nothing to do with historic preservation. We're combining you with.
We are still being recorded.
Right. Okay, don't do that. It's a joke. Kidding. Probably being recorded even when we're not being recorded.
Oh, for sure.
Anyway, that's all the stuff we have. Anything anybody else want to bring up?
Just want to say it's been nice seeing all of you. And thank you for all of what you've been doing in my absence. And thank you also, Eric, for all of your work on CPA.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
Always
to
good
see you
to
again.
see you, Dick.
Well, I have an open square on my screen for you if you ever want to show up again for the meetings.
Now, can I make a motion? Is it
Go
too?
for it.
All right.
You should
Make
get
a
the date right.
motion to conclude April 1st, 2025 meeting of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Falvey, second by Mr. Bauer. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? I should oppose this. Just no, I'm not gonna. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Shagnon,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. So
Right.
have a good 2-week period before we see each other again,
Yes,
or whatever it
I
may be for you,
am-
Mr. Bauer.
No, I am
Thank-
still around 2 weeks.
Thank you, Madison, Kit, and Kristen.
Yes, thank you, guys.
Yes.
Appreciate all your work.
Thank you all for your time.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks, folks.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.